All right, everybody, welcome to class 4 on somatic experiencing. My name is Dawn Bennett, and I've been working in the field for 26 years now. My background's in both massage therapy, somatoemotional release, emotional freedom techniques, tapping, as well as hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming. I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I do in order to help people tune into their mind, their body, and their belief systems and release them gently and effectively. And joining me today is Cynthia McQuaid-Brinkman. She is my co-host slash retreat facilitator. So today is for a high-level overview of what somato-emotional release is, as well as a little bit of tapping experience. And so, sorry, I'm trying to unpin you here, Cynthia, so you're not, there we go, remove spotlight. So what we're going to do today is first I want to just address what is the soma, what is somato-emotional release, and what is tapping. So when we talk about soma or somatic release, we're talking about what's in the body, right? The soma means the body. And so we're looking at where do our experiences, our memories, our beliefs, our thoughts, our traumas, our joys, how do they get held within the body tissues? So if you pause for a moment and you can think of something in the past, maybe that still bothers you, something that creates irritation or anger or frustration. When you tune into that moment, maybe it's someone cutting you off in traffic, maybe it was the cat that puked on your bed, maybe it was an argument with your kids or a significant other. And when you tune in, often an emotion will come up now, and often some kind of body sensation. And that body sensation can be anything from shallow breath to tightness in the chest to feeling a little bit restless, like, oh, I feel like I need to move. And maybe it's in the hips or the back. Maybe it feels like a little tingling in the fingertips. Or maybe it feels like you're outside of your body, like you're not even present anymore because you dissociate or you kind of protect yourself by not being super present within your body. Now, some people don't feel things in their body, and that's okay as well. I just want to honor that some people are not very kinesthetic. In other words, they don't feel a lot in their body. But others of us, it was not safe to be in our body in certain situations in life. Or we never just developed that awareness of how to tune into our body because we learned different techniques to interact with the world through speaking or visual or hearing. And we never really were allowed to or taught to tap deeper into our wisdom. So the thing about somatic release as well is, have you ever thought about something in the future? Like maybe you're worried about paying a bill, or you have to give a presentation, we've got a job interview, or you're going to some event and you can feel it in your body now as like worry or as excitement or as fear. That is also the soma. So this is how emotions pattern themselves in our body through the way that the nervous system works. Our brain can't tell the difference between past, present, and future. And so there's a lot of different ways to work with emotions in the body. So we've got things like emotional freedom techniques, also known as tapping, which we're going to explore a little bit today. Any kind of body work, movement, massage therapy, acupuncture. There's something called brain spotting. There's active release therapy. There's EMDR. Like I could just list therapies and therapies and therapies and therapies and therapies that work with the mind and the body connection. So my goal for you today in this short half an hour session that we have is to introduce you to a couple of techniques that you can use on your own, knowing that when we get into the retreat, for those of you that are going into the retreat in January 18th and 19th, there will be deeper and longer experiences there. So we'll be able to get fully into this and spend an hour on really delving in what's happening in the body and then helping you find and trace that for yourself as well. So with tapping, let's start there. So tapping is also known as emotional freedom techniques. It's a method in which we tap certain areas of the body while we're acknowledging what is, how we feel about it, and where it is in our body when we feel it. So for example, let's say that someone cut you off in traffic yesterday and you almost got in an accident, right? Have any of you had that kind of thing, right? Someone cuts you off and you're like, ah. Now, sometimes we let go of it right away. And other times later on that day, we still find ourselves like, oh, I can't believe that dude cut me off in traffic. Like he almost caused an accident and I had to slam on my brakes and blah, blah, blah. And we tell the story and it gets really into our system. And the more often we tell the story, the stronger it patterns into our system. So what we can do with emotional freedom techniques is we acknowledge, even though there's X situation, and this can be, once again, past, present, and future. So even though when I think about that guy cutting me off in traffic yesterday, or even though when I think about fighting with my sister 2 weeks ago, or even though when I think about whatever it is, failing that test, falling down and making a fool out of myself, or whatever it is, we think about one specific moment in time. And then we notice, what do I feel emotionally when I think about that situation? So we notice that and we write that down. And then we notice, where in my body do I feel it, if anywhere, when I think of that situation? And we notice that and we write it down. And then we come up with an acceptance phrase. So acceptance phrases in emotional freedom techniques look like, I deeply and completely accept myself. Or I accept that I feel this emotion. Or I'm open to letting this go. Or with kids, we'll use like, my mom loves me anyway, or God loves me, or my dog loves me, or whatever resonates with the person that we're working with. And the lovely thing about tapping is you can do this by yourself at any point in time. Now, the key with good tapping that you don't see on most YouTube channels, that you don't see even on the Tapping Solution app, which is a great app, I love it, but they always work like, even though I'm feeling anxious, I have all this anxiety. Oh, I'm so anxious, all this anxiety. And what happens is the brain starts thinking about every single moment that you were or could be anxious. And then tapping sometimes is not as effective, or it doesn't last. So it may calm you down in the moment, but it may not really clear a situation. It may not clear that anxiety long term because it's too much for the brain to change the pattern within the nervous system, within the mind and body in a safe way. So then when we run into then is either tapping doesn't work at all. And people are like, oh, I tapped and nothing happened. Or people get very emotionally overwhelmed because the brain just starts going, oh, and this time, and this time, and this time, and this thing that happened, and this thing that happened, and this thing that happened. And then the emotions come up and the sympathetic nervous system, the fight flight comes up and the danger feeling comes up and the overwhelm and the anxiety increases. So in order to really work with ourselves and others effectively, we want to make sure that we're working on really small situations at the time. So the example I used, fighting with my sister 2 weeks ago, I'm 47 years old. My sister is 4 years younger than me. We started fighting when I was, when I was 4 and she was 0, right? So if I'm looking at 43 years of fighting with my sister, even though it happened more often when we were 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 than it does now, my brain's still thinking about that if I don't get specific. So what I want to do is I want to tap on the side of my hand. You guys can all tap with me just to kind of get this in your body. And what we would do is we'd say something like this, like, even though when I think about fighting with my sister 2 weeks ago, so see how I narrow it down to one moment in time. And how do I feel about it? I feel sad that I fought with her. And then an acceptance phrase of, I accept how I feel, right? So even though I feel sad in my stomach, thinking about fighting with my sister 2 weeks ago, I accept that I feel this way. And even though I feel sad in my stomach, thinking about fighting with my sister 2 weeks ago, I'm open to letting this go. Okay. So what this is doing now is it's bringing the mind into a space where we're acknowledging the situation. We're acknowledging how we feel about it now, because I can't change how I felt about it back then. Maybe then I was angry and that's why I was fighting with her. But now I feel sad that I fought with her. That's the neurological link. That's the emotional, the somato-emotional link that the brain is referencing. So now I say, even though I feel sad in my stomach, thinking about fighting with my sister 2 weeks ago, right? So now the brain's going, oh, this thing that's stressful. And then I deeply and completely accept how I feel, or I accept myself, or I'm open to letting this go. It links the mind to calmness. It links the mind to safety, right? So we repeat 3 times while we're tapping on the side of the hand. And then all the rest of the tapping points are reminder phrases. So we'd tap the top of our head, like, I'm feeling sad in my stomach. The next point is between the eyes, kind of right on the corner of the eyebrows. Now you can tap both sides, you can tap one side, you can tap both sides at the same time. Really doesn't matter. Feeling sad in my stomach. Good. The next point's the side of the eyes at the temples. And if you have glasses, you can go above your glasses, below your glasses. Feeling sad in my stomach. And the next point is under the eyes, right in the cheekbones there. Feeling sad in my stomach. Good. And the next point is under the nose. Feeling sad in my stomach. Next point's under the mouth. Feeling sad in my stomach. Next point's under the collarbone. So if you think about that soft spot on either side of your collarbones, this is a spot we do want to tap both sides at once. So if we want to do it with both hands, we can do it with one hand. Doesn't matter as long as we are accessing both sides. Feeling sad in my stomach. And then the last point is under the arms, just kind of right straight across, right on the bra line for women, right? So you can go across, you can go, I always tell kids, like, act like a monkey, right? And tap your sides. And they love that. Feeling sad in my stomach. Okay. So we take a breath and we reset and we say, okay, now thinking about that situation where I was fighting with my sister 2 weeks ago, how do I feel about it now? And when we tune in, we notice that either the emotion has changed because now maybe the sadness gone, maybe the anger came back, because as we know, there's more than one emotion in many situations. So maybe the sadness has gone, we have a different emotion. Maybe we feel it somewhere different in our body, or maybe the intensity of emotion has shifted. So it's gone from, say, a 7 out of 10 to a 3. Any of those mean that we've done a successful tapping round. So when you use this technique in this way, it helps us identify specific situations and clear the emotion from them. So that way, when the body looks back on them, when our brain looks back on them, there's complete neutrality. And the lovely thing about this technique as well is our brain does something called the generalization effects, where it has, like, let's say, boxes, right? So you got your relationship box, let's say, and your work box, let's say, and your family box, let's say. And so when you're tapping on something about fighting with my sister, and that makes me feel sad, well, it might also be remembering a time that I fought with my friend at the same time, because our unconscious mind is very smart. And it goes, oh, this thing's like this thing over here. Well, why don't I just take care of them both at the same time? So believe it or not, the more specific we are, the more impact it actually has in permanent changes in our brain. So much so that there's a bunch of research around EFT and how it works. But one of the ones I like to talk about a lot is at Bond University in Australia. They did 8 weeks of group tapping with people on their cravings and compulsions, and found that their anxiety around food, their depressiveness, their emotional eating went down, as did their cravings. And even checking in 2 years later, some of them didn't even remember what they were craving, because that's how clearly it was gone from their system. And they did before and after MRI studies to show that the spots in the brain no longer lit up when they thought about that food. So it does create permanent changes. Now, how do you want to use this for your day-to-day use? Until you learn the whole technique, you can actually just tap. Because remember how I said the brain can't tell the difference between then and now, between past, present, and future? So if I'm in a moment right now, I don't have to say, even though right now I'm feeling angry because my printer broke and I need to print up my thing for work. I can. Or I can just feel the anger and just breathe into it and just tap through whatever points I happen to remember at the time. And this is what's great, is the points I taught you are the points that they use for the research. So they're clinically validated points. But that being said, I have some clients who are like, I just like this point. And when they feel stressed, anxious, depressed, sad, they just tap on one point. They notice, okay, where is that emotion in my body? So I know I'm feeling anxious. How do I know it? Okay, I feel it in my chest, or I feel it in my stomach, or I feel like I'm like, or I feel like I'm out of my body, or whatever it is. And then they just tune into it and they tap, or they tap a couple of different points. So when we tap and we breathe, right? And you don't have to tap and breathe, but breathing helps, right? It makes things move faster. Deep breath, tapping, and also defocusing. In other words, you know how you have peripheral vision? When we're really upset about something, we get hyper focused. It's the way we keep ourselves safe. So literally we get hyper focused, like, oh my gosh, how am I going to fix my printer? I got so much to do. I got to print it up. And we get ourselves all, right? And we breathe more shallowly. And our eyes also focus into whatever we're doing. So when we can pause, tap, open up. Can I see the peripheral vision? Can I see the walls next to me? Can I feel my breath? Any of those techniques or all of them together will calm your nervous system down very, very quickly. So are there any questions on tapping? So really, you've got the link in the chat. And for those of you watching the replays, I'll have the links there as well. So you can learn how to do this very simply for yourself. Like I, as a practitioner, know a bunch of different techniques for tapping. So I use different ones for trauma. I use different ones for cravings. I use different ones for deep body one. But this is the basic tapping that anybody can use. So if you have time to watch the class, great. If you don't, just remember that you can tap any of these points at any point in time and just breathe. And it will calm your system down. So notice, where is it sitting in my body? Okay, I'm feeling this tightness in my stomach. Okay. All right. And you keep tapping until the body sensation is clear, till it's gone. And it can be really easily and effectively. Okay. Now, sometimes there's multiple things stored there. So we might get it down to a 2 or a 1 instead of all the way to a 0. But of course, any improvement you can make is going to be beneficial. Are there any questions that I can answer real quick in this point of time? Okay. So, somato-emotional release. As I mentioned, our mind and body are very, very connected. And often when we feel emotion or when we have something happen to us, it's deeply embedded. So last week we talked about anchoring. And anchoring uses the idea that anytime there's a strong stimulus, emotional stimulus, and a spot on the body is touched, the two are neurologically linked. Okay. So that can be why, you know, when I was a massage therapist, if I touch somebody's shoulder, they might be like, oh, my grandma used to put her hand there. Or, oh, that's where my old football injury is. Or, oh, that's where my whatever was, right? So that's why touch can bring up certain traumas for people. Why it can bring up really positive memories is because anytime we've had a strong emotion and our body is touched, especially repeatedly in the same spot, those two things become linked. So that was last week's course. And we're going to expand on that today by also noticing that we can dialogue directly with our body because we know somewhere in our unconscious, somewhere in that part of us, the unconscious mind, by the way, is the part of us that drives to the store and gets there safely when we don't remember driving, right? You get to the store and you're like, I don't even remember driving here. Huh, right? It's also the part of you that you try to drive to the grocery store and you get home and you're like, whoa, 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 I was trying to go to the grocery store. How did I end up in my driveway? Right? Because it does things, it drives us places automatically. So if it does that with something so obvious, such as driving to the grocery store, and we can end up in the right place or the quote unquote wrong place, it's the same thing that's driving us in our emotional reactions, in our body reactions, in our relationships, in our work, in what we believe about the world. So all of these things are really, really linked. So when we start working with the body as a way to access our unconscious mind or as a way to access healing, we can literally just tune in to the spot. So we do something called body scanning. And body scanning, like maybe you already know, maybe you're already like, my shoulder hurts or my stomach hurts, or I have a disease and it's neurologically affecting me in this way. So if you know where your pain or your discomfort or your challenge feels like it is, you can just jump in and tune right into there. But sometimes we don't know. Like, okay, I'm just feeling out of sorts today. I'm going to do a quick body scan. So all that means is that you're literally scanning your body in your head. How does my head feel? How do my eyes feel? Do I feel like tight? Do I feel like I'm clenching my jaw or not? As I scan down, how's my neck feeling? Do I feel tight? Do I feel any pain, discomfort? Does anything feel hard, stuck, tight, lacking, empty, right? Any kind of body sensation that feels different. We can stop there and pause and notice. Okay. And you can do it with eyes open or eyes closed. What am I feeling in this space? What am I noticing? So we can notice, okay, let's say there's pain there, right? Like as I was body scanning, my neck started going like, like I have a spot in my neck. So I'm noticing right now, like, oh, it's stiff and it's tight. And right now it's throbbing. It's really catching my attention, whereas before it wasn't bothering me at all. Okay. If there was a color to it, what color is it? The color is blue. Okay. If it had a shape or a name, what would that be? Doesn't have a name if I ask it, right? But I can just tune into that spot. And we can do a couple of different things to release it. In a lot of practices, I just forget the name of it, a Vipassana meditation practice for a long time, where you'd scan your body and you just hold and you'd witness. You'd notice something in your body and just witness and fully accept. Just kind of like tapping, even though I feel sad in my stomach that I fought with my sister 2 weeks ago, I accept how I feel. We're doing that except just by tuning into the body. So I can tune into my neck and say like, okay, I notice that it's tight and that it's stuck. And I'm not going to force it to go away, but just by bringing my awareness to it, what is my body trying to tell me? And some people even ask the question. They'll even dialogue with their body like, hey, body, all right, neck, like feeling pretty grumpy today. What do you need? What are you trying to tell me? Because our body does have wisdom. And the fun part about this is many people are like, I don't know, it's telling me I should drink more water, but that doesn't make any sense. Why would it tell me that? Or it's telling me about a boundary, or it's telling me I need more sleep, or it's telling me, and then they're like, well, I'm just making that up. Because sometimes it feels like we're making it up. And the mind and body are so strongly connected that when we have a thought connected to a body symptom, feeling, sensation, emotion, the two are linked. So you can just scan a spot and notice what is there and come with full love and acceptance. So just notice, I want everybody to just take a moment here and let's practice this together. So go ahead. If you feel comfortable, close your eyes or soften your eyes and just scan down your body, beginning at your head, down towards the feet. Just notice, are there any spaces, any areas that are calling for your attention right now? And when you find a space, just notice it. Notice, do you see something in your mind's eye? What do you feel in your body? Is there something you hear? Does it have a size, a shape, or a texture, or a temperature? Does it seem like there's a foreign object in there, right? Some people talk to me and they're like, oh, it feels like a block of wood, or it feels like a band around my head. And so now to clear it, you can ask it first. What are you here for? What are you showing me? What's the message that you have for me? No judgment. Sometimes there is no message. Sometimes it's just there, and that's okay too. But once you've identified it and kind of described it in your head, one of the things you can do is if it has no message for you, if it's not dissipating just by tuning in, you can imagine making that spot smaller, smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until it just disappears. Or you can make it do the opposite. Some people like making things bigger because when it makes it smaller, some people feels like there's more pressure. So some people like making it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and so big, like it fills up the house and then the walls and then the city and then the space and then the country and then the world and then the universe. And then they notice that it just dissipates because it's part of everything. And now it's gone completely. Or you can imagine grabbing it or having spirits or angels or God or whatever you believe in, grab it. Imagine them reaching into your body and with love and with graciousness, taking this from you and removing it and refilling it with love. Because when we remove something, we also want to replace it, right? So we want to always replace with love, with peace, with healing. And give that sensation gratitude. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing me what you were here to show me. And when that feels complete, you can go ahead and open your eyes. Good. How was that for people? Good. Any questions, comments? You can also put them in the chat. You don't have to speak out loud if you don't want to be in the recording. Good. So these are two quick highlight overviews. So just remember, if you can take away anything, right? You're very welcome. If you take away anything from today, just remember that with tapping, just tap on whatever points you remember. In that link I dropped into the chat, there's a PDF in there. There's all kinds of things. So sign up for the course is in there, the PDF's in there, all that kind of stuff. You can always contact me and I can email it to you as well. And just remember to give yourself grace. When you feel things in your body, there's a reason. There's something attached to it that you can tune in, and you don't even have to know what. Like, this is the lovely thing, is I don't have to know why my shoulder hurts. I don't have to figure it out, but I can tune in my shoulder and say, thank you. I'm paying attention. Thank you for showing me that you're hurting. And then do whatever process, either make it bigger, make it smaller, allow it to dissipate, take it out personally. Like, you can literally imagine grabbing it out yourself, having angels grab it out, whatever you want to help move that energy through your body and replace it with love and peace. Because the unconscious mind wants to heal. Like, this is its prime directive. And so when we give it opportunity and spaciousness to do so, you can have amazing results. So that being said, thank you everybody for being here today. If you're interested in our 2-day retreat, where we're going to be doing much more of this and much more of all the techniques, I can drop that link into the chat as well. And then we've got one more session next week. So next Sunday, same time, same spot. If you're VIP, you can stay on for the next portion of the session, and we'll go even deeply into this and work with you a little bit individually. And for those of you that are not VIP, thank you so much for coming. And I look forward to seeing you next week or whenever else. And I'll shut off the recording as well in case anybody has questions they just didn't want on the recording.